You ever wonder how some anglers can just load up on huge spring inshore fish while others can't even get a bite? Well, there is a formula for finding and catching loads of fish. And in this video, I'll show you all of the best kept secrets that most anglers don't want you to know so that you can go out there and catch all the inshore spring fish that you deserve. Now, as examples, I'll be using black drum and stripers a lot, but all of these secrets will apply to any inshore species of fish. Now, your first step in understanding where your inshore species of fish are even going to be is understanding their comfort zones and spring indicators. A lot of finding these fish is going to focus primarily on water temperatures. And these water temperatures are going to dictate a lot of what these fish do, especially in the spring. And of course, what we're talking about is the pre-spawn, the spawn, and the post-spawn. So your temperatures and the pre-spawn are going to be from 55 degrees to about 64 degrees. And the spawn is going to be anywhere from about 65 degrees to 68 degrees. And then, of course, around that 68 degree mark where it starts inching closer up to the 70 degree mark and over, that is going to be your post-spawn. And of course, understanding where these fish are coming from, where they're going to go to spawn, and then we're going to go to the post-spawn is going to be ideal for you consistently being on these fish. Now, the biggest problem for most spring anglers is not knowing where to find fish or how these temperatures trigger fish movement in the three stages that we just discussed, which is the pre-spawn, the spawn, and the post-spawn. And everyone gets hung up on terms like migratory patterns, but all fish, freshwater and saltwater fish, will move in very similar ways depending on these water temperatures. So let me show you how this works for the pre-spawn. So in the wintertime, fish like striper and black drum will migrate south to deeper water holding grounds, where some fish will even stay in the river systems or bays in deep water to get them through the winter. These are called holdover fish. Then as waters warm up, the fish will move from their deeper water holding grounds to areas in the bays where the bay meets the mouths of the rivers, where the fish will eventually swim up to spawn. Those fish need to gather in these pre-staging areas to get their body temperatures up, to warm up and feed in preparation of the spawn. To find these fish, often finding shallow water areas adjacent to deep water is key, because if the fish are warming up but the weather turns cold, like it often does in the springtime, they can then fall back in that deeper water to find their comfort zones. Structures like points and channel swings and holes and lumps can be ideal areas to find these pre-staging fish. Now, the advantage here, of course, goes to the bank anglers for once, as fish are finding near shore zones to warm themselves up as they move from their offshore deep water wintering grounds to shallow pre-spawn areas. Areas that are going to hold a lot of fish are places with cover or bottom composition that will warm up quickly, like concrete, bridges, gravel, shallow sand, rocks, and especially mud flats. Look for locations like this as fish travel to and pile up in pre-spawn staging areas, and you're going to catch monster spring fish. Now, if you need help finding these ideal fish locations, I actually created a tool that quickly identifies the best fishing spots for you and actually analyzes the spot and tactics per the weather conditions. It's helped hundreds of my clients catch more fish. It's totally free, totally up to you. I'll link it down below. Now, as you go from pre-staging and the pre-spawn into the spawn, as those water temperatures are getting warmer, this is where your migratory routes really come into play. If you know where the spawning areas are, we have to understand another key detail of saltwater fishing, and that is tidal movements. Now remember, your water temperature is going to be your primary indicator here, but your tides are very much going to affect this water temperature, and this is how it works. So you have the spring sun, it's going to be beating down on those mud flats and those sand areas and those backwaters. That is going to warm up way quicker than the open ocean. Now, as you have that outgoing tide pushing out, all that warm water in the back is going to push out with that tide, and those fish are going to take advantage of all those newly active crustaceans and grass shrimp and mud minnows and whatever that's pushing out with the tide. Now, on an incoming tide, freezing cold water is pushing in, like 55 degree ocean water is pushing in, and that's going to push everything back up into those back bays and those shallow water areas. So as that sun is beating down and that cold water is coming in, those fish are going to want to stay on mud flats and shallow areas to still take advantage of that sun and the warmth. So now that we got pre-staging areas down, right? Areas where these fish can warm up and feed heavily, you also want to keep in mind where the spawning areas are. So if you can find a map and you can say, okay, fish are going to pre-stage here, they're coming into the inlets, they're coming into the bays, and they're really going to look to end up over here where they could spawn. Now you can plan your route along your migratory fish highways of where those fish are going to travel to and from. These are very often sloughs, not the deepest sloughs, not like the deep channels running through bays and running through inlets and things like that, but like your offset sloughs, right? These fish highways, you know, areas where fish can get up shallow, and then if the weather turns, they could get back deep. So understanding that could really help you know how these fish are traveling and where you can set up shop in order to intercept them as they move up and down these systems into the bay and out of the bay. So let's talk about the spawn. So striper are actually pretty interesting. These are not freshwater fish. This is where some biology comes into play. What'll happen is you get a big female striper moving up into those estuary type of areas. And then you'll have the males like kind of ram her and push her around and get her into position to actually lay those eggs. Once she lays the eggs, the males will fertilize them, and those eggs will stay maybe 2 to 3 days until they actually hatch into little baby striper. And the eggs are just slightly denser than water, so they actually suspend in the water column. So you actually do need some water movement here in order to keep those eggs afloat. They need sunlight, they need that warmth, that perfect water temperature like we're talking about. They'll hatch, and then they'll actually feed off their egg yolks for about another week or two, and then they themselves will swim into these estuary systems and live there for the next like 2 to 4 years of their life until they get big enough where they could join that breeding school out into the ocean. So now we know where the pre-staging areas are in the early spring. We know where the fish are going to look to travel to in order to spawn, right? And now once the fish breed and make little baby fish, now you enter the post-spawn. And one of the greatest post-spawn tips I can provide here is paying attention to horseshoe crabs. That's right. That is your spring indicator that the spawn is done. The fish have spawned out, the crabs have spawned out. Now, not all horseshoe crabs die, but it does take a lot out of them. So you will see a lot of dead horseshoe crabs right after they spawn, and that should indicate to you, hey, we're moving into the post-spawn. And what the post-spawn means here is that those fish, they're gonna transition into post-spawn areas, which are gonna be a little bit deeper water, so they can find a little bit cooler water, and now they're going to want to feed. They're looking to get away from those mud flats a little bit and looking to cool down a little bit. And that's where those incoming tides is really going to be to your advantage on where you're going to position yourself to take advantage of post-spawn feeding fish. Okay, so there's the drum. This is just a different view of it, but you see there's the drum close to the bottom there. There's a few up top. And these big jags up here, these are bunker. There's tons of bunker around. But these bigger fish down at the bottom, these are all drum fish. But now take a look at that right there. That is 70, almost 71 degree water temperature, which is not ideal. We are fishing the outgoing tide in the Delaware, and there's so many mud flats back here. It's been, 80 and 90 degree days for just 3 or 4 days, and it jacks up that water temperature that much because that mud absorbs all that heat. It gets really warm in the back, and ideal water temperatures for these fish is about 65 to 68 degrees. And so it's getting a little warm back here. So now, probably your best bet, and we're going to see, is on the incoming tide when that 55 degree water temperature out in the ocean starts pushing into the bay. It's going to drop this water temperature down, and it'll probably get it in that ideal range between 65 and 68 degrees. All right, now take a look at that. So we're making a move closer to the mouth of the bay, closer to the ocean, with that cooler water temperature in the ocean. And take a look at that water temperature right there, 67.4. Now we're gonna find a fish and let's see if it works out. There we go, fish lots. We are on. I just got done explaining why we're on the drop, cooler water temperatures, all that good stuff. And take a look at this fish just taking run after run on me here. There you go. Yeah, it's a big fish. All right, now locating your spots. Okay, so we talked about the pre-staging areas, your spawning areas, and your post-spawn areas. But one of the greatest skills that you could develop as a fish lot is just using your eyes and locating different areas that the current is moving water in things like eddies or underwater points, things that most people aren't going to pick up on. This is a skill that I've showed you numerous times in my videos. A matter of fact, when I take the kids fishing, I actually teach them how to do it. Kids are quick to learn and they can catch just a ton of fish. So look for these structures. We also talked about pinch points or choke points. If you look at a chart and you notice the funneling of water, you can also see that with your own eyes. That is a great place to look for these striped bass, black drum, and monster bluefish that are coming in to take advantage of these fish in the back bays right before they head back out into the open ocean. So a lot of the things that we talked about in the pre-staging area, the pre-spawn, the spawn, and the post-spawn, now you can combine all your knowledge here and really hone in on your fish throughout the entire spring fishery. Now, everything discussed in this video will absolutely catch you more fish. But if you want to go deeper with a step-by-step process to catch you more fish consistently, go and click on this video right here, where we cover fish locations and exact tactics you could use to literally load up on any fish you're after. All right, thanks for tuning in, Fish Lots. I'll see you out there on the water.